I'm on a cruise looking forward to the entire week of relaxation that is ahead of me. I'm excited about the exotic places I will visit, the delicious food I will get to eat, and the time off from work. I have a pina colada in one hand and my phone in the other taking selfies. I'm in paradise. And then, my cruise ship gets stranded in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We set sail 3 days ago, then became stranded when the engine failed due to mechanical issues. The ship's mechanic has been diligently working to fix it since late last night. This morning I woke up hoping to be on our way to the next destination, the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. Instead, while taking a shower, I hear a loud thud and screaming. I get dressed, leave my cabin, and go up to the deck to see what is going on. I see a crowd of people surrounding something. I push my way through and see a female passenger that has plummeted to her death from the upper deck of the ship. Her body is now being taken to the morgue where it'll be stored until we make it to the next port. I didn't even know that cruise ships had morgues. It's kind of creepy knowing that you're walking around having a good old time on vacation while someone is sealed up in a body bag down below. So did she fall? I hear an elderly woman standing in front of me whisper to another passenger. The man answers, "No, I think she was pushed. I saw someone wrestling around with her up there," he says, pointing to the balcony above. "Oh my heavens," the lady replies as she places her hand over her mouth in shock. The sight of all of the woman's blood splattered across the deck begins to make me feel nauseous, so I head back to my cabin to see if Morgan is up yet. My twin sister and I are on this cruise together. It was a gift from our parents for our 25th birthday. I swipe the key card to our room and gently close the door behind me when I notice that all of the lights are still out. My bed is still neatly made, just the way I left it this morning. Morgan's is a mess, as usual. Blankets and pillows are left in a bunched up pile, and some have even fallen onto the floor. She's not a very neat person, and that's the one thing about her that drives me crazy. Who would want to rest their face on a pillow that has been lying on the dirty floor? Sometimes I think she does things on purpose, just to get on my nerves. I walk over to her side of the room and see that she isn't wrapped up in the pile of blankets and pillows, so I pick up the ones that have made their way onto the floor and then head to the bathroom next. "Morgan, you're not going to believe what I just saw. This cruise is going to shit. I'm traumatized. I just saw a woman die right in front of me. I know you're not going to believe it, but I'm telling the truth," I frantically call out as I tap on the closed door. There is no reply, so I call her name a little louder. "Morgan, are you in there?" Still nothing. Maybe she has a hangover and can't hear me calling her, I think to myself. We both had quite a bit to drink last night at the bar. We are celebrating our birthday after all. I can just hold my liquor better than she can. I slowly open the door, hoping I don't catch her sitting on the toilet or barfing into it. Neither of those would be a pretty sight, but then seeing that poor woman this morning with her skull smashed in wasn't a sight to see either. When I enter the bathroom, it's empty, and there's no sign that Morgan has even been in there. My wet towel from the shower that I took this morning is still right where I left it, hung over the towel bar to dry, but it's the only one there. I glance at the floor expecting to find one because I know how messy she always is, but there's nothing. Assuming she went to go get some breakfast without me, I'm surprised to hear the sound of her phone ringing in the bedroom when I dial her number. That device stays glued to her at all times. She doesn't go anywhere without it. I search the cabin and discover her phone and purse on the floor beside her bed. That's right where she tossed them early this morning when we stumbled in from the bar. Then I noticed something that I hadn't before. The sliding glass door leading out to the balcony is slightly ajar, and I know it was closed when I left. We left it open last night to let some fresh air in, and the room was chilly when I got up this morning, so I closed and locked it right before I went to take my shower. I slatted the rest of the way open and peeked my head outside, but she's not out there. Now the panic sets in. I look over the balcony and peer into the deep water below, searching for any sign of her. Suddenly, the ship jerks forward and then a horn blares loudly, alerting passengers that we are up and running again, but scaring me half to death. I rush out of my cabin and find the nearest crew member. Although out of breath, I cry, "You have to stop the ship. I can't find my sister. I think she may have fallen overboard." Other passengers begin to stop and stare, trying to see what all of the fuss is about. He grips me softly by the arm and leads me to a less conspicuous part of the ship. Miss, please calm down. We don't want to frighten the other passengers. Now what's this about your sister? I take a few deep breaths before answering. My sister Morgan. I left her in our cabin asleep, and when I returned, she was gone. Miss, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. She's probably somewhere on the ship, he assures me, not worried whatsoever. No, you don't understand. Her phone is still in our cabin. She never goes anywhere without it, I argue, as tears begin to stream down my face. I have that twin intuition that something is terribly wrong. If you're not a twin, you wouldn't understand. The man tells me that he will alert security and have them check the ship's surveillance footage. What was she last seen wearing, he asks. I think about it for a minute. I can't remember if she changed into her pajamas last night or if she climbed right into bed when we returned from the bar. I reply, she's wearing either a pink satin tank top with shorts pajama set or a black halter mini dress. He removes a notepad from his back pocket and jots down the information that I've given him. Then he asks for a description of Morgan. We look exactly alike. We're twins, I answer. He writes down a few more things on his pad, taking a moment to glance up at me numerous times. I assume he's taking notes on my appearance. Then he unhooks a walkie-talkie from his belt loop and relays the information to security. He asks if I'd like to wait for them to arrive, but warns me that it could take a little while because they are still cleaning up the crime scene. I tell him no, that I will head back to my cabin to see if Morgan has returned. On my way there, as I'm crossing the deck, some of the other passengers begin to stare and point at me. Then I notice a woman walking toward me. I assume probably to ask what is going on. But to my surprise, she strolls right past. As I glance around at all of the other passengers standing on deck, I now realize that it wasn't me they were staring and pointing at. It was this woman. She's wandering around aimlessly like she's had a little too much to drink. I pay her no mind. Obviously, I have more important things to worry about at the moment. So I continue across the deck, but stop dead in my tracks when I hear gasps and screaming coming from behind me. When I turn to look at the cause of them, the wandering woman is now standing atop the railing at the bow of the ship with her arms spread wide. Instantly, I'm reminded of that iconic scene in the movie Titanic where Rose does the exact same thing. But less than a second later, this woman is dangling from the railing over the side of the ship. It happened so fast that I didn't even see how it happened. Did she jump? Or maybe she slipped? Some of the other passengers are attempting to rescue her, but the closer I get to the scene, it looks like she's fighting them. It's as if she wants to fall. Her eyes are glazed over and she's staring up at the sky in a daze. A middle-aged man and teenage boy, who I believe are father and son, rush over and somehow manage to pry the woman's fingers from the rail. They pull with all of their might as other onlookers form a human chain and grab each other by the waist to help pull her back up. I noticed the same man from earlier that told the elderly lady he thought the other woman who died on the upper deck was pushed. I approach him to ask if he saw what happened and overhear him telling another man, "Maybe I was wrong. I thought the woman who died on the upper deck this morning was pushed, but this is the same exact thing I saw. Someone must have been trying to help her back up, and she was fighting them, just like this." Once the teenage boy begins to pull her up, he loses his grip and it all goes downhill from there. The man is left to hold on all alone now, but with the woman's body slamming against the ship every few seconds, it causes him to lose hold of her as well. She plunges into the waves below, disappearing into the deep ocean water. All of the commotion temporarily distracts me from the fact that I haven't found my sister yet. But now that the woman is gone, and most likely dead, my focus shifts back to locating Morgan. What in the hell is going on around here? There have been 2 deaths on the ship just in the last few hours, and don't forget the fact that my sister is still missing. Right after I tell this to myself, a panicked realization hits me that this is all actually happening, and I slowly begin to back away from the scene just as security arrives, trying to get control of the panicked crowd. I bump right into the crew member who took my statement about Morgan. "Miss, I'm so glad I found you. Can you please come with me? I have some information about your sister," he informs me. I quickly follow behind him as he leads me to a door labeled Security Office. "Did you find her?" I inquire. He opens the door and holds it for me, but doesn't respond. There are 2 security officers seated in the room waiting for us. The crew member, Dimitri, whose name I'm just now noticing for the first time, asks me if I'd like to sit down. That immediately makes me nervous. It sounds like something a cop would say right before they deliver some really bad news. "Miss Everett, take a look at this," he tells me as he plays a video. "Security footage shows your sister leaving your cabin this morning right after you did. You return a short time later and then leave again. She hasn't returned to your cabin yet, but that tells us that she's somewhere on the ship, just like I thought," Dimitri informs me. "Well, can't you find her? Did you check your other cameras to see where she is?" I ask. Dimitri answers in an irritated tone. "Miss, I'm not trying to be rude, but we have more pressing matters to deal with right now. We have to stop the ship. We have a man overboard, and we are still investigating the incident that occurred this morning. Your sister is fine. She's not missing." I look at him stunned. Okay, maybe she's not missing, but I know that something is wrong. She would never leave her phone behind. Can't you at least make an announcement? Just tell her that her sister Megan is looking for her and to please return to her cabin. He nods his head and lets out a deep breath before replying, "I'll see what I can do." I decide that since they aren't going to look for her, I'll have to be the one to do it. Why doesn't anyone believe me when I tell them that something is wrong? I know Morgan better than anyone else. And the feeling that I have in the pit of my stomach right now is worse than anything I've ever felt before. I woke up in the middle of the night with a similar feeling when she got into a car accident 6 months ago. First, I head to the main dining room to look for her there. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I see the buffet line up. My stomach growls as my eyes scan the colorful array of breakfast foods. I should be in here with Morgan right now, chowing down on a plate of French toast and bacon. The dining room is pretty empty, with only 12 passengers dining at the moment. The others have all probably locked themselves safely in their rooms, which sounds like a good idea to me. That's exactly what I plan on doing as soon as I find Morgan. Next, I enter the women's restroom before I head to the gym at the stern of the ship to search there. Back home, she's an early bird. She insists on getting up at 6 in the morning so that she can do yoga exercises before she goes to work, so I'm hopeful that I could find her there. All of the stall doors in the bathroom are standing wide open, except for the very last one. It's the largest of the stalls and my go-to whenever I use a public restroom because of the amount of space that you have in there. But since that one is occupied, I choose another. While inside, I hear a stall door swing open and then shut. Loud footsteps echo throughout the room. Then, "Someone's in here," I shout. I'm not really sure why someone would be knocking on this door when there are plenty of other empty stalls. I finish my business and then exit the stall, expecting to see whoever else was using the bathroom, but it's empty. That's strange. I didn't hear them leave, I think to myself. I shrug it off and begin to wash my hands. Then a sudden chill fills the air, and something out of the corner of my eye captures my attention. The dark silhouette of a woman with pale, creamy white skin and midnight black hair cascading down her shoulders stands before me. She's wearing a flowing white dress with a lace border. I can tell something is off. She has a skeletal look about her, and her gaze is robbed of emotion. "Excuse me," I say as I prepare to walk past her. She doesn't move or say anything. The closer that I get to her, she begins to look translucent. I try to convince myself that it's just my eyes playing tricks on me, but with everything that's been going on today, I start to wonder. I walk around her and open the door to leave, making sure to be polite and hold it for her. When she doesn't walk out behind me, I glance back to see what she's doing, but she's gone. I close the door behind me, thinking maybe she went back into one of the stalls. While I'm on my way to the gym to look for Morgan next, the cruise ship intercom blares above me. Finally, they're going to make the announcement letting Morgan know that I'm looking for her.
At this time, the captain would like to ask that all passengers please report back to their cabins until further notice. Thank you.
I realize that the ship has stopped. They must be looking for the woman who fell or jumped overboard. I'm still not really sure which one. They probably don't want us to see her body if they find her. That's why they made the announcement. Morgan had to have heard it, so she should be on her way back to the cabin now too. When I finally get through the crowd of other passengers and make it to my cabin, Morgan is still not there. Maybe she came back and saw that I wasn't here, and now she's out looking for me. I hope that's all it is. I jump when there is a knock at the door, then rush to open it. It must be Morgan, because she forgot her keycard in her purse. My heart drops when I see a female crew member standing there smiling. "Hi, my name is Julie. I'm just coming around to do a quick head count. Is anyone else in there with you?" I tell her that my sister hasn't returned yet and that I haven't seen her since early this morning. She scribbles something on her notepad, thanks me, and then marches to the next cabin. I feel exhausted, so I lay down to take a nap while I wait for the next announcement telling us that we can leave our cabins again. Hopefully Morgan will be here when I wake up. A few hours later, I awake expecting to be greeted by Morgan laying in her bed, but instead I'm greeted with a pounding headache. Now I really start to panic, because there's no reason why she shouldn't have returned by now, unless something is terribly wrong. It's dark outside now. The moon is out, but completely covered by passing clouds. The only light I see is illuminating from the ship. The rest of the ocean is nothing but darkness. The intercom screeches, making my headache feel 10 times worse.
This is an emergency. All passengers and crew, please report to the deck of the ship immediately. Thank you.
After disconnecting my phone from the charger, I head up to the deck to see what the emergency is. The ship remains at a standstill. I'm not certain, but I think it's in the exact same spot as before when we stopped to search for the woman who went overboard. As I wait for some news as to what's going on, I notice that the deck looks very empty, but I know that there are well over 2,000 passengers that boarded at the port in Miami. The captain of the ship joins the passengers and informs us, "I've been trying to send out a Mayday call to the Coast Guard for the last few hours, but I can't get through. The radios seem to be jammed. My crew members and I are trying to figure out what's going on around here. I don't want anyone to be alarmed, but some of the passengers and crew members seem to have mysteriously disappeared. I'd like everyone to grab whatever personal belongings they think they will need and convene in the main dining room in 15 minutes. We will all remain there until I can get through to the Coast Guard." I nervously hurry back to my cabin to grab my suitcase and phone charger, making sure to toss Morgan's phone and purse in with my belongings. Just as I'm about to walk out the door, I notice that once again the sliding glass door leading out to the balcony is open, and standing in the doorway is a woman. Her thick blue veins are swelling through her wax paper skin. Her gleaming emerald eyes pierce right through me, boring into the depths of my soul. There is no question in my mind that this woman is not human, but her presence is so enchanting that I remain motionless. I feel like if I move, she will disappear from sight, just like the other passengers who have gone missing. As she begins to drift toward me, the sliding glass door slams closed and catches me off guard, causing me to jump. I blink for a split second, and when I open my eyes, the woman is gone. My heart starts to race, and my body can't stop trembling. I try to shake it off and tell myself that I'm only seeing things because I'm stressed out about my sister missing. I grab my belongings and rush back to the dining room. The only one allowed to leave is the captain. The remaining crew members move tables and chairs to one side of the dining room and lay out blankets and pillows on the floor for everyone. I get settled, but find it impossible to get any sleep. I'm too worried. When I finally do doze off, I awaken to one of the passengers trying to get out of the dining room, but the doors are locked from the outside. The only person who could have locked us in here is the captain, because he was the only one who was allowed to leave, I think to myself. After banging on the doors for minutes and waking up the other passengers, we realize that the captain is already in the room with the rest of us. So, if we're all in here, who locked the doors? I question. No one has an answer. We finally break open the doors and decide that it'd be best to just keep them open, that way we won't get locked inside again. The next morning, when I wake up, I see a group of passengers huddled together, speaking in hushed voices. I approach them and overhear part of the conversation. "Are we the only ones that are left?" one of them questions. Well, where did everyone else go? Another asks. I saw a family of 5 jump overboard, a woman chimes in. I keep seeing strange things all over the ship, another adds. An elderly woman says, I'm not a religious person, but I can't explain what's been going on here. Then she drops down to her knees and begins to pray. I interrupt, telling them I'm going to find the captain. They beg me not to go. We shouldn't split up. It's too dangerous, one of them calls after me as I leave. Maybe I shouldn't have come out here all alone, I think to myself as I creep down the dark corridor. The ship is unusually quiet, except for the sound of the water beneath every time it sways back and forth on the waves. I can hear my heart pounding out of my chest. I'm really scared. No, terrified is a better word. My eyes dart back and forth across the barely illuminated hall to each open doorway in desperate search of the captain. I nearly jump out of my skin when I hear creaking behind me. I spin around so fast that I almost fall over. Calm down, I tell myself. Ships creak and make noise all of the time. You're just scaring yourself. I continue to inch my way along, but the corridor seems endless. When I round the corner, I can finally see the end of the hallway. There are 2 double doors that lead to the engine room, and that's where I find the captain. He instructs me to go gather the rest of the passengers and bring them back there. There's only a handful of us left, I inform him. He looks very concerned. He hands me a walkie-talkie, and then I head back to the dining room. Words cannot explain the feeling of fear that washes over me as I'm walking down the hallway leading out of the engine room. The lights start to flicker and then go completely out. I pull out my cell phone and use my flashlight to find my way. An apparition of a man appears at the end of the hall, watching me through the darkness. He's wearing a sailor's uniform and a thick black mist hovers around him. It's so cold now that I begin to shiver. The change in temperature doesn't faze the man. I'm just about to turn around and dash back to the engine room when he opens his mouth and lets out an agonizing moan that rattles the walls. I stand there frozen in fear. For the first time since I was a kid, a warm sensation flows down my leg because of the dread and fear resonating from this thing. Every instinct in my body is telling me that I'm about to die. Time stands still until the man just vanishes and the lights flicker again before coming back on. When I make it to the dining room, there are only 2 people there, huddled together in a corner. We're the only ones left, the man tells me as I enter the room. What in the hell happened? I ask. He replies, when the lights went out, they just started getting up and walking out different doors. I followed one man and saw him jump overboard, so I think it's safe to say that they all did the same. Did you find the captain? The woman asks me. Yes, but he still had no luck in contacting the Coast Guard, and now all of the crew members are gone, so he needs our help getting the ship up and running. No one is coming to save us. We'll have to get ourselves out of here, I tell them. They apprehensively follow behind me as we head back to the engine room. When we're almost there, I notice that the battery to my walkie-talkie has died. Then an ear-splitting shriek rings out over the ship's intercom. Was that the captain? The woman asks with a look on her face that tells me she's scared to death. I slowly approach the door to the engine room and push it open with caution. I don't see the captain anywhere, just blood covering every inch of the room. I quickly close the door and tell the others to follow me. I lead them up to the bridge, which is the room where the captain commands the ship. What are we doing in here? The man asks me. I'm not really sure. I guess the only thing we can do now is continue trying to reach the Coast Guard. Do you know how to work any of this? I ask him, pointing to all of the buttons and screens before me. He shakes his head but says that he'll try to figure it out, then heads over to the radio. The woman finds a seat and sits there crying uncontrollably. Looking at this woman crying hysterically brings me back to the reality that my sister is still missing. I don't want to think about it, but she's probably either been murdered like the captain or jumped overboard like the other passengers. I wipe the tears from my eyes and start to frantically press buttons, trying to get the ship moving. Suddenly, loud bangs ring out and handprints begin to appear on the foggy glass. The man starts screaming at the top of his lungs as the glass starts to crack. "Come get me, you bastards! I'm not going out like the rest of them!" Then he smashes the emergency box and retrieves a flare gun. He shocks the hell out of me when he places it into his mouth and pulls the trigger. His body drops to the ground, resonating a slight glow, burning flesh and smoke lingering from his mouth. After the woman witnesses this, she starts uncontrollably crying and screaming. The handle to the door starts to shake and rattle. She runs over there and grabs it, yelling and pulling back on the handle with all of the strength that she can muster. "I don't want to go! I don't want to go!" With nothing but fear and shock inside of me, the only thing I can manage to do is stare at the screens before me. The largest of them is some type of navigational system. At that moment, I hear the door and windows bust open simultaneously, throwing fragments of glass everywhere. Focusing at the top of the screen, my eyes rest on the words, "Plot course." There are 3 spots plotted on the radar. Suddenly, the woman's chants of "I don't want to go" and screams have stopped now. The 3 destinations are Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. They form a triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, and the ship that I'm on is floating right in the middle of it. Subscribe for new original stories 3 times a week. See you next time on
Nino's Nightmares.
Really? You're supposed to click the like button, not me. Ugh.